Greetings, everybody, and welcome to my channel, All That Is. I'm so pleased to welcome my guest today to the show. Ani and I met on Indigo Angel's channel for a roundtable. I guess it was New Year's Day. We had our first show, and we've been meeting there ever since quite frequently. So, welcome to the show, Ani. I'm so pleased
Thank
to
you.
have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Yeah, I know I had a show on your channel, but I was like, no, I need to welcome Ani to my channel. And so here we are. It's been a while, but I'm so glad we could do this today.
Thank you.
So Ani has a beautiful YouTube channel where she interacts with many guests, and it's called Quantum Messages with Ani Sophene. She also has a website, which I will put in the description for the show notes. And as we move through the show, I'm sure Ani will talk about her work and the services that she has to offer and about her YouTube channel and all of her guests. But first, I'd like to go back, Ani, if you will, to perhaps when you started out on your, or became aware of your spiritual journey, if you will, and how that has manifested,
Yeah.
and how you discovered, if there was anyone or anything that made an impact in your life. So yeah, take it away, and wherever you want to go,
Okay.
I'm happy to go with you on this journey.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll start out as a kid. So as a child, I was deeply involved with animals, and I felt more comfortable with animals than I did with humans. And so right from that start, I was kind of already different from other kids, and I kind of had a hard time connecting with other kids, and I was very shy, and I just I didn't trust people, when I was little. And so, but on with animals, I was very bold and I felt that I was in my element. And I rode horses. So I started riding when I was very, very young, about 2.5. And on a horse, I just felt like that was part of my soul. The horses and riding are part of my soul. And so that was where my talent was, basically, with riding horses, and when I was little. And so as time went on, there were several, traumatic events that most kids have when they're children. I mean, there are some that don't have traumatic events, but I did. And so that kind of put me on a different path. And it wasn't bad physically, it was just more of like a mental traumatic event. And it happened like when I was 7 years old. And so from 0 to 7, you're in this theta brainwave state. So anything that actually happens during that time, it's just really imprints on the system. And so around like 9 or 10, my parents divorced and I moved in with my mom, and my mom raised me. And I didn't really start, I know that I dreamed when I was little, but I didn't, have very, like, I couldn't remember them. And there wasn't anything super significant that happened to me, except for the fact that I was afraid of the dark, like most kids. And I did sense things. And I just remember being afraid to like sleep by myself because I would sense certain things around me, but I didn't know what they were. And, as a kid, you just think they're ghosts or something. And so I was very sensitive to that, but there was nothing super significant that happened to me until I was a teenager. And so when I started really waking up is when I started my menstrual cycle, which was a little bit late, which was around 15 years old. And then that's when I started having very significant events occurring in my dream state. And so I was visited multiple times by interdimensional beings that uh, I believe were malevolent, and they were very scary to me. And I think the reason why it started opening up during that time period is because not only did my body start shifting, and so I started like kind of waking up to these things because of the hormones, but also because I was dabbling with witchcraft as well. And so, if you don't have a guide or a person to help you down that path because you are sensitive to these things and you start messing around with things like Ouija boards and spells and that kind of stuff, you can open up a whole can of worms. And so I believe that's what happened to me. And so I started going down this deep, kind of dark path of like trying to find out who I am, why am I here? Why am I like having this longing and this like seeking, like that's so deep within me? It almost made me like I really questioned like everything about, you know, the whole reality and everything during that time. And so one way for me to tap into this is I started experimenting with different types of drugs. And I got involved with some pretty dark people. And I think this was just, you know, part of the lessons that I needed to learn, you know, in this lifetime. But it gave me the perspective now that I look back of that very deep, dark path, you know, and knowing the difference between the dark and the light. And this is just so basic the way that I'm talking about it because there's all this gray. But I really went down a path of like very deep seeking and also, unfortunately, drug use and abuse during my later teens and early 20s. And after several very scary dark night of the soul moments, I started shifting, you know, my reality, and I started like climbing myself out of this like dark hole. But during that time, I got involved with, you know, Zachariah Stitchin's work, Helena Blavatsky's work. I like studied the secret doctrine. I also started seeking out my heritage on my dad's side because I'm Armenian. And so all of the information about my family was lost in the Armenian genocide by the Ottoman Turks. And so I was really trying to seek and try and like find purpose in like, who am I? Why am I here? What does my heritage mean? And through all that deep seeking is kind of where my spiritual, you know, path began. But it wasn't super positive, you know, in the beginning. And I felt very lost. I didn't have an elder to help me and guide me and help me interpret the messages that I was receiving from higher dimensional beings, and also the kind of paranormal activity that I was experiencing during that time. So that's kind of like
Wow.
a general, you know, that's like the beginning part of
Yeah,
my
that's
path.
amazing.
Yeah.
What was your experience that you termed as the dark night of the soul? Like, how did that happen and how did that transpire?
So I'll just give you like a generalized version of it. But if you can imagine every single, like most of the statistics that teenagers experience, I had those experiences and not the good ones.
Okay.
And so during, I think the pivotal moment was the deepest one is when I had experienced domestic violence, and it was in my early 20s. And so like I could have been killed in that moment, you know. So it was like a life or death situation. It only happened, you know, over a 2-day period. However, it was a major wake-up call, you know, for me, like get off the path that you are on or you're going to die type thing. And so yeah, I questioned like during that time period like my safety, you know, where I was afraid to go outside, like step outside the house. And a lot of women experience this, you know, around the world,
Yeah.
and a lot of women don't get out of it. And fortunately, I had my mom, who is like this very tough woman, and she, you know, helped protect me during that time period. And fortunately, the person ended up in jail, and now he's in prison. You know, this was a long time ago.
Right.
But this happens to a lot of women, you know, and that I think the life or death situation is probably one of the biggest dark night of the soul moments to experience for anybody.
Yeah.
And especially when your life is in danger and it's physical,
Yeah.
you know. And
Wow. I'm
so
sorry you
part of,
had to go through that.
yeah, so I mean, there were several before then too. But it just led up to this. And a lot of the reason why is that, you know, with a lot of kids is that they feel lost in their teenage years. And those kids that are sensitive, like I was sensitive to certain things and sensitive to the unseen realms, I didn't know how to manage, you know, the power that was coming through. And I didn't know how to interpret the messages that I was receiving. And so I was, you know, seeking deeper understanding through, unfortunately, the use of drugs and people who, you know, were not for my benefit. And it spirals out of control, you know. And so I think some of the things that saved me is my sheer determination and will, and then also, having a good family. So I have, very educated family background, and just in general. And so I was kind of like the black sheep, the oddball risk taker type of person, kid. And so that experience was definitely a wake up call for me. And so after that, I started shifting my whole life. I started, went back, to school, decided I wanted to become a teacher, and started going to college and just really like focusing on a different path. And yeah, I mean, I know there are a lot of people who do experience that. I, stop using drugs. And then, yeah, so
Wow.
that was the big moment.
Yeah, like I said, I'm sorry you had to go through that, and that it came to that life or death situation for you to pivot and make that change in your life. But I suppose from all of these dark encounters or dark experiences, it's the more intense, I suppose, that you feel it. And it sort of gives you that clarity that, this is not where I'm supposed to be, right? And so I'm glad you were able to do that and to come back from that. Um,
Yeah.
so while all of this was happening, were you then looking into like the Sitchin and all of the other people that you talked about? And
Oh yeah. So
okay.
during all this whole period of time, yeah, I was doing like deep research into all of, esoteric knowledge, the, Egyptian, ancient Egypt, all the ancient cultures. I started reading their texts. I started doing deeper and deeper research, trying to understand who I am, why I'm here, what is my purpose. And a lot of information definitely came through to me. But it was also, I believe, not super clear because of my this darkness that was surrounding me
Mhm,
as well. And
mhm,
so I started realizing later on that I definitely opened up the door for dark entity attachments, which I've talked about extensively in my work, as I'm older now. And those experiences helped me see dark entity attachments, with people. Um, and it's not something that I want to interact with, but it seems to be coming up. Like I'm able to spot it and notice it right away because of the experiences that I had.
mhm,
And I feel like with anybody, when you get lost along a path like that, or the use of drugs, is you rip open your energy system, and it allows these attachments to come in. And so major cleansing needs to come forth, and realization, awareness, waking up to rid yourself of that,
mhm.
you know.
Yeah,
And
no, I
so
totally agree. Yeah.
yeah.
So what
So
would you say was the next step in your evolution, if you will?
so I ended up having children. And so that completely
Okay.
shifted me. So I had my kids in my early 20s, and I was my son first, and then my daughter. And then, then I just kind of like went on this path of, healing, like healing your body, eating like healthy foods. I got deep into Ayurveda and yoga, the practice of those two things, and going more deep into the Eastern sciences, spiritual sciences, and, just trying to live a very healthy, grounded life, as I was raising my children and also teaching, children too. And so during that time, I still feel like there was seeking and, information coming forth, but it was more of this like holistic grounding, information, like how to eat right, um, what to do, like how to heal yourself, those type of things, and how to raise healthy children. And so my focus was purely on my children during that time. Um, and yeah, until the next, dark night of the soul moment. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, I've had
They just
several.
keep coming,
Yeah.
hey?
Yeah.
So how old would you say your kids are now? So that's
So
what
they're
would you?
15 and 17.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And you've raised them on your own, or is your partner around?
So no, I'm divorced. So I've been divorced for about 5 years. And I would say I did most of the raising of the kids. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
It was, yeah, definitely me. And now for sure, like I'm a
Yeah.
single parent, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, it's been interesting, but it's just, there was, after, my teenage years and that heightened level of like awareness and awakening, there was kind of a lull that happened, kind of like a break period. And then it came back. So, like almost, and it started in 2019. And so, like a lot of people, huge shifts started happening during that time around our planet. We were, preparing or getting, ready for this, the big event, COVID-19 that went down. And so major purging started happening, and, personally with people and also around our planet. And so, yeah, more big events occurred during that time. My ex-husband, was an alcoholic, and then we ended up divorcing, and I had to put him in rehab for a year. So, I mean, these are very hard, life experiences. And so when these things happen, and when you're kind of like on your knees begging in a way and asking for help because the pain is so deep, that is when true awareness comes in those deepest, darkest moments. And that's true. That's what a dark night of the soul is. And so I went through that again, like asking for help. And so what happened is I started receiving messages again from, interdimensional beings. And I started diving really, really deep into the UFO, you know, subjects, which I tried to stay away from when I was younger, because I was so utterly sensitive to these things that I actually was fearful to be, put my focus on that, because I was afraid I was going to bring it to me. And so I guess it wasn't until I was ready to be able to, overcome this fear that I had, which begs the question, when I was in my teens, what was going on? Was I being, what was happening? Was I being visited by these beings during this time? And all this weird paranormal things that were happening to me, I probably was. And I'm sure that if I did hypnosis, I could probably, pinpoint it. So that happened. And then, I mean, that was a dark time. This was during COVID. So I was single parent, working full time, teaching students. I had my class, everything was online. Had my 2 kids, single parent, had to put my ex-husband in a rehab for a year for alcoholism. It was rough, so that
Well, thank you for sharing. Yeah,
yeah,
that's really deep. What
yeah.
do you teach, Ani?
So I taught elementary school, and
Okay.
then 5th grade, and then I also taught advanced robotics to middle school students.
Oh, wow. And do you still
So
do that?
I currently am not, because I moved out of my area. So now I have my private business where I counsel people, cancer patients, and also those that are seeking spiritual guidance. And I've been working lately with special ed students. So this is kind
Okay.
of like, there's 2 separate things that I'm doing. And
Wow, that's
so
awesome.
yeah, I've been helping special ed students lately. But yeah, my background is teaching, and yeah, and science as well. So that's why I'm so involved with this like quantum stuff, quantum messages, quantum physics. So yeah, so during that time, what I realized is that, when you get into those dark places, and a lot of times with people, when they have tragic events happen to them, and, when they're older, and then have to where it just, their whole lifestyle kind of like rips apart, and they have major stress, those type of things are a recipe for diseases to come forth. And so that's what happened to me. I developed breast cancer. And so a lot of times with cancer is that it's kind of there, like you've been developing it for a while, but there are certain events, and also it's like kind of like the right recipe, the events that happen emotionally, and then also the environmental things that are occurring, within around the body, basically, of that human. And so it was the prime recipe for developing cancer, and that's what happened.
Wow, you've been through the
Yeah.
ringer, haven't you?
Yeah.
It's been like no end of testing for you.
Yeah.
Wow. And not
Yeah.
not small lessons, they're all like really big lessons that you've had to overcome, and
Yeah.
that's truly amazing. But thank you for sharing and
Yeah.
being vulnerable about these experiences. Um, and so now you teach and you help people with cancer. That's correct?
Yeah. So yeah, usually cancer patients will come to me, or clients, because I'm not a doctor, but clients will come to me, and usually they're seeking spiritual guidance. So I'm a minister of walking prayer, and they come to me for more of the deeper emotional, spiritual healing that they're seeking. And a lot of times with cancer is that it's not just about healing the physical part, it's really about healing that emotional, spiritual part.
Yeah,
That is the key to healing yourself. So I help people.
that's
That's kind of
awesome.
been, yeah, my path.
Yeah.
Now I feel like I have to give back. So
Yeah, yeah. No, that's
yeah.
beautiful. And did you have to like how did you come about your healing modality, if you will? How did you come into that realization of helping people in that
So
specific way?
yeah, so a lot of times when you get cancer, the traditional medical route is to have surgery, get radiation and chemotherapy. Those three things. And then also if you are a woman and it has to do with the breast, to be given tamoxifen depending upon what type of breast cancer it is, because there's different types. And so if it's estrogen caused, then they would give you a special type of prescription drug to suppress estrogen. And so I mean, when you first find out you have cancer, there are the 3-4 words that are, given to the person basically saying you have cancer. And so your heart just sinks, drops, and it's almost like a life or death experience again, because it's like, if you don't heal yourself, you're, like you're on the path to death, basically. And so that is it's huge to overcome the fear and the anxiety. And so through deep spiritual practice and forgiveness, and also literally connecting with the unseen realms and shifting my diet completely and understanding what type of genetic mutations I have, because I have 2 genetic mutations that make it easier for me to, if the environment is right, for me to get cancer. Shifting all of those things, taking away the toxins out of your body, shifting your, emotional state, all of those things have to come together in order to heal. And so through that process, I was able to go into remission. And so I opted out of not having surgery and not going the Western route. And so I went a more holistic metabolic approach route, where I'm focusing on the whole system instead of just a part of it. And through that and through deep work, like in like sheer determination, I was able to go into remission. And so I
Wow,
never like to
that's
say,
incredible.
yeah, I never like to say somebody's cured from cancer, because once you have cancer, everybody, so that's the thing, there's always circulating cancer cells around our body, but our immune systems usually will be able to, attack them and get them under control. So everybody has them circulating around their body, but the immune systems just take care of it. So I don't want to say cure, because there's always, you never know, So I just like to say I'm in remission, and that I am able to manage myself, and I know what my weaknesses are, physically and also genetically, to manage, what I eat, the supplements I take, and my emotional state, to be able to continue on being in remission.
That's incredible. Really incredible. And how long did it take you to go through this process of healing, if you will?
So I think the healing process will be lifelong, because there's
Yeah.
always those triggers, like that's why I'm really careful. I, like, for example, I'm choosing not to be in a relationship with another person, because those deep ties and like kind of like knots, binds could trigger certain things. So I'm more on like this, I'm on the spiritual path. And so it took me, I would say you're in remission after 3 years. So I've been on this journey for about 4.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a long time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
kudos to you for doing that
Thank you.
work and, going into that intensive training, if you will, of,
Yeah.
first of all, doing all of this on your own and then taking care of your kids at the same time,
Yeah.
working. It's not easy. It's not at all easy. So yeah, hats off to you for that huge accomplishment.
Thank
And
you.
then helping others as well, that's truly coming from a very deep, humble part of yourself, right? So
Yeah.
that's really amazing.
Thank you.
So I want to dig a little more into, what it is that you are seeing in terms of these energies that you see from the other realms. And have you
Yeah.
been able to identify these energies or these beings that come to you? Um, and I know you don't want to go into the dark side of it, but
Mhm.
um, how are you managing that, or are you still wanting to interact with these beings and try to figure out how they sort of, come into your life or manifest in your life, or why they've
Yeah.
manifested in your life?
Yeah. So I'm trying to start, like, I'm going deep down the path of trying to right now doing deep research on like melding the metaphysics with the actual science. Like, it's starting to merge and come together as we're progressing forward with technology and understanding quantum mechanics. And so I feel like there's an explanation for why all of this is happening. And, the darker side of the beings that I have been present in my life, I sometimes, well, now I'm kind of questioning, like, was I, being visited by UFOs, possibly, or other forms of intelligence? And when they come and visit you, it usually happens within that hypnagogic state, when you're like in that in between state. And a lot of times, because our physical bodies are not, used to their presence and energy, it feels like there's a lot of pressure and you can't move. And they actually can immobilize you, you
Yeah,
know?
I've had
And
that. It's like a paralyzing sort of
yeah.
situation, right? Yeah.
And so I feel possibly that I was visited by them, and I was, in my subconscious state, it was more of like, I thought maybe it was like a demon. Um, and there could have been, interactions with dark entities before, but I might have been visited several times by these other entities that were coming and checking up on me. And so um like non-human intelligence. And so what I've come to realize is there's several different types. There's like the non-human intelligence coming from, very advanced civilizations that are able to travel here interdimensionally, that are checking up on humans. And there's, the watchers or the guardians. And then there's those also malevolent beings that are coming and visiting us. I feel a lot from the Orion constellation, and creating a lot of havoc on our planet. And then there's the other ones, like you have the interactions with the Dracos and the reptilians, which I don't feel like I'm not as connected to those. I'm more to the Anunnaki. And then there's also the ones that are coming from these lower dimensions as well, which are more of like these kind of freaky dark entity demons. And so I've experienced all of the above. And they come and visit at certain times. And what I've realized is that it has something to do with where you are geographically on the planet. And yeah, so I can tell you like different stories and stuff about, these experiences, but when they do come to me is in that deep meditative hypnagogic state. And so depending upon where I am psychologically, it depends on who's going to come visit me during that time. And when I was a kid, it was more random and kind of like spontaneous. Like, I didn't know when it was coming. But when I was a kid, or when I was a teenager, I would constantly experience this in the in between stay. And I told this on Rob's channel too, was that when I would sleep on my back, I would get into that state, and that paralyzed state, and then I'd be falling down this black hole. And so later on, what I realized is that I was basically quantum jumping through portals. And I was trying to, I think, connect back to my source self, where my soul is located. And I believe, after doing more deep research, it comes from the Andromeda galaxy. I know I'm from the Andromeda galaxy. It's been a while since I've been here. And so as a kid, I was like dropping back I was like, it's almost like you're falling through these different portals, like hopping into different galaxies or maybe different portals within the solar system, like different solar system or different star systems within our galaxy, trying to get through, you know, a portal to get to the hop to the next one.
Wow.
So because it's so far, the
Yeah.
Andromeda galaxy is really far, you
Yeah.
know?
How did you come to the realization that you were from Andromeda? Was this channeled to you, or did that just come into
Um,
your realization?
so after doing my chart, instead of doing the tropical chart, I did a sidereal chart. And I feel like personally for me, I know people follow the tropical, but I think the sidereal is more accurate and more in line with kind of like the path I'm on. So I did that chart and I mapped out all of the constellations that go along with each one of my different placements. And Andromeda came up 5 times. So
Wow.
it's just so prevalent, you know, and that it seems obvious. And then when I did deeper research into it, it kind of makes sense because Andromedans feel once they come to this planet, because there's so much, division, it's hard for them to transition in here. They also feel more deeply connected to animals than they do to humans because humans are, predators. So, and animals are too, but just like it's like a different level of communication. And so as a child, I realized that I felt that very deeply. I felt more deeply connected to animals, that I can communicate with them than I could with the humans. And so it just seems that uh, as I feel that that's what it is. And so what happened is, and I kept on having this experience where I was falling down this black hole and it was scary, but I didn't realize actually what was happening, that I was actually time jumping, going through these different portals, trying to connect back to my other self. And so eventually what happened was, and this is why I realized that I traveled so far, was I finally let go of the fear of the falling down this black hole. And what happened was, is in my left ear, and it always happens on my left side, in my being on my left side, was this high pitched kind of like scratchy sound that was coming forth, like frequency. And then it shifted into radio waves. And then it shifted into a woman singing opera. And then it shifted into a being that is not from our realm telling me, I will show you the way. And so, because there were so many levels of shifting frequency to get for this being to be able to even tell me that, it took so long that it was coming from a very far distance, you
So
know?
would you say that was like a being from Andromeda that you might consider like soul family, or would you consider that your higher self or your soul energy or
I
like
think it,
another?
yeah, I think it, so my intuition's telling me, I think it could be, part of my either soul family or definitely my part of my soul, which is much larger, than what, like it's not just it's the whole of the soul,
Yeah.
the whole soul, which is multiple different beings,
Yeah,
um
absolutely.
but yeah, I definitely think so yeah, if higher self, soul, it could even be like the oversoul, because of the voice, and because of how long it took for this being to be able to communicate with me.
Are
um
you able to maintain that contact?
I do feel like I am. So now that what the contact happens for me is like where the information will just kind of, I call like dropping down. Like all of a sudden I just know things, and it's just like the words come like they drop down into me. I don't know if you experience
It's a
that as well.
knowing. Yeah, it's a knowing. Yeah, I get that
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
And it's coming from up here, it's coming from the higher chakras. So I think that was the connection that needed to be made, the frequency connection. And now I'm like connected to it, you know? Um, but it took like literally a year for me to be for the higher self or the soul self to be able to find me and where I was in space time.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
incredible.
it was a very trippy experience. And so that experience shifted me completely. Like, once you have that like deep, um, like such a deep feeling and such a like, you can't even like put words to it, type feeling, it just shifts your whole reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
No, I get it. I went
yeah.
through that similar, well, I shouldn't say similar, but I've had that experience as well. Um,
Mm-hmm.
do you get the impression that you've been like here for many lifetimes, or is this like is this your like one experience in one lifetime that you're here?
I believe I was here before, but it was a very long time ago. Like I don't have like a connection, like for example, to like I kind of do. Like I feel like I understand Atlantis. I'm just using that as like an example,
Hmm.
but I think I was here before then. So it's been a very long time since I've been here, and I think that's why my transition has been so rough,
Yeah, yeah.
coming in, and why I've had like I have to, in order for me to move on once I pass, I have to make sure all of my karma is cleared on this planet, you know?
Okay. Yeah.
And so in order for me to get back where I came from. And so um and I know where I'm going next, which is interesting. So
Okay, cool.
yeah, I'm going to the Lyra and through Vega to get back to Andromeda. And
Oh,
so,
so that's like your pathway back?
yep, it's my
Oh,
pathway
okay.
back. Yeah,
Wow, that's amazing.
yeah. It kind of gives me the chills, when I think about that.
Yeah.
But
No, I think it makes a lot of sense. I'll
yeah,
just give you a little bit of a snippet and what happened to me.
yeah.
So I don't know if you saw my show where I discovered that I was like the seed of Brahma, which is like a huge energy,
Mhm,
right? And so I was birthed here from that energy, if you will. And
mhm,
so my role was to free this larger energy that was trapped here on the earth plane. And so
mhm,
this energy had to find its way back into the higher realms. And so it found it through Arcturus and the
hmm,
central sun. So it's like, all these energies have to
yeah,
find that path back. And so when you
right,
say that, you've got your path back to, you're mapped out and how to return,
yeah,
that makes total sense to me and
yeah,
how these energies work. So yeah, that's
yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I believe, I think we can map this out. All humans can, dependent, like if they know their birthday, their birth time, where they were born, we can actually map out how they're going to get back their soul
Yeah.
path. And so, yeah, I find it fascinating and interesting. But I definitely, it's been a while since I've been here. I know why I came. I came to help the earth and her energy and those humans that want to ascend to the next level. And so I'm bringing this energy from Andromeda, uh, and I know that it's coming through right now. I know a lot of Andromedans are here trying to help stabilize the planet. And as she's going through this ascension, and we're at this massive shift that's happening, I don't believe, I do know that I'm not going to incarnate back here once I pass. Like I'm moving on to other things, but it doesn't mean I won't come back to the planet in the future. So to help out.
Yeah, after what we've
Yeah.
gone through, it'll take us a long while to heal all of that, right?
Yeah.
To even
Totally.
consider coming back.
Yeah.
Um, just from my understanding and my reality of how things are moving and this whole ascension process, I'm given to understand that the Andromedans are leading the charge, if you will, for this whole ascension process. And
Mm-hmm.
so that makes total sense when you say that, first of all, you have come online, if you will, and in alignment with
Yeah.
that energy for like, your mission has been um, revealed in a way to you, right? So,
Right.
so that makes total sense to me because, from my understanding, the Andromedans are very close, shall we say, to the creator energy. So, they have different levels, right? So, as you ascend, you go closer and closer and closer to the energies of the creator, right? And so, the Andromeda, as a race, have reached those very, very high potentials, which are really close to the creator. And so when all of this nonsense happened with the Draco invasion, if you will, the Andromedans took up the charge to to bring forth this collective and bring about a membership of various civilizations that wanted to join forces with them. And so that's what we are seeing now, that's manifesting in a way in our reality where, they are cleaning up, if you will, all of the damage that was done by the Draco and the Zetas and, the Orion beings and all of these other
Yeah.
lower dimensional energies. So that's really fantastic, Ani. To
Yeah.
know that, you're coming from these higher dimensional beings and
Yeah.
these energies that have such an important role in our ascension.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
so I just wanted to, I don't know, there's so many ways we can go with this now.
Mhm.
How did you figure out the Lyra Vega sort of pathway through your own discernment? How did that happen?
Yeah. So on my chart, I believe it's the north and south node. So you from the north and south node, wherever your whatever constellation is within that, that tells you how you came in and how you're going out, where you came
Okay.
from and where you're going. And so
Okay.
that keyed me into what's next. I also have a I would call her like a guide from Lyra.
Okay.
She is a feline hominid who's been watching over me for a while, and she will present herself like in my mind's eye, like kind of like in my vision, like I can actually see her. And so I know that we're quantumly entangled with each other.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating.
Yeah.
Arcturus did visit me as well about a couple months ago, Arcturian
Right.
beings. And I know why or even how is because like where I'm placed, like in my bedroom, like Arcturus has been kind of rising right in front of my bedroom for the past like 4 months. And so I had an experience, a visitation by them. uh
One of my guides is a Nocturne.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. They're helping out a lot. And what they did with me is that they are kind of exposing themselves to my system so that I can start getting used to them. I have a feeling they might be dropping in, like they might be one of the contactees once we start like having open contact. And
They're
they're
certainly
definitely,
preparing us, aren't they?
yeah.
On many levels, yeah.
Yeah. And so I know that they were trying to get my system ready because there was frequency that came through my ear, my left ear again. And then when during the visitation, my body was shaking. So they're trying, and they didn't show themselves because I think if they did, I think it would have been a shock. But they were there and they were present.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
the same
almost,
for me. They won't
yeah,
reveal themselves. They're like, no, you're not ready.
yeah. So I think these little, and I feel like it's been happening for a while. So it started out about a couple years ago. I started getting visitations and they would drop symbols into my mind's eye. And so I would see different symbols spinning.
Hmm.
And this was in the hypnagogic state. It always happens around 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't
Yeah.
know if you experience that as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Between three
and
and five.
yeah, between three and
Yeah.
five. And then also frequencies were coming like in, like almost like they were leveling me up,
Mm.
like do 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 do, like weird sounds like that. Um, and this would happen, I would say, every other week.
Wow.
Symbols would
Okay.
be coming in, and then the sounds, and then I'd have really strange, like kind of like in between, like time transition states where like time was distorted, and they were definitely visiting me then, and then they just visited me again a couple months ago. But and this visitation was physical, like they were physically here at my house. And I know because I saw, like I was able to see the light shine through past my window. And then as they were coming past my window, that's when they paralyzed. Well, I don't think that they purposely paralyze you. I think it's just because of the high frequency energy. So it just paralyzes you. And then that's when they did whatever they did, like with feeding me energy and then sending me the signals. And then when they left, there was this massive, huge air pop in my house, and it went foomp, and all of the doors just went, just you know how like when they move, it just like they just shifted, and you heard like the air just kind of like escape the house, and then the doors kind of move. It was a trip.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And are you able to translate, if you will, the messages that they give you? Are you able to understand light language?
So the way messages come to me is all of a sudden I get these like hits, like I just know something. And so Arcturians are technical, you know, and they have a lot of knowledge, scientific knowledge. And so I think they're transferring that type of information to me. Um, and it definitely might have a connection with my son, because he is extremely technical, you know, and has like this scientific mind, and is very intelligent. And so just new information is starting to come to me in the understanding of like quantum physics, quantum entanglement, quantum teleportation, uh, telepathy, and how to begin to start describing how this is all happening, you know. And so I believe that is like the information that they're giving me, and they're also trying to upgrade my system for contact in the future.
Wow, amazing. What do
Yeah.
your kids think of all of this? Are they sensitive as well?
Yeah, they are very sensitive. They know a lot. Like it trips me out how much they know, you know. And I think that's part of the process. I think that they need to know these things because we are moving so fast into the future. This will give them internal power, you know, and confidence as we're navigating these times. Uh and for them to know that you know, our reality is not just what we see. There's so much more to the unseen, and I feel like it helps them critically think. So yeah, my kids are quite sensitive, especially my daughter. I feel like she definitely has like these psychic abilities, and she definitely is a dreamer as well, like I am. Like I have at least three dreams in a night. Like I'm constantly working in my dream state, and so is she as well. And so we've always had these deep conversations. We've always talked about science, especially like my son. He has like a, you know, this engineering gift type mind, physics mind, and always high. Both of them are extremely like highly intelligent, and I would consider them different than other children. When I see them in the way that they behave, they're different, you know. And so I believe they've come to help as well. So we're here to help out.
Wow, powerful
Yeah.
team of three, hey?
Yeah. Totally.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it's great to have that conversation and be able to
Yeah.
speak freely with your kids, right? Especially when
Yeah.
they're sensitive and, like you're learning more from them than they're actually teaching you, right? Don't you
Right.
feel that way?
Oh yeah, totally. No, and it is true, especially like from their dreams. And like, you know, it's funny, like some of the science stuff, like my son is 17 years old, and like I'll go and talk to him about it, and he's able to, like the things that he can explain is just crazy to me. Um, and so it's really nice to be able to have like deep conversations. And, you know, like my daughter is like wise, super wise, like beyond her years. Like I've told you some of her strange dreams that she's had before, and just like her own perception and her own questioning, like who am I, why am I here, what do I need to do. And it's fascinating how she's asking those questions, and you know my son knows what he needs to do and why he's here, and he always has since he was like 2 years old.
Wow, that's awesome. Have you done charts for them?
I have. I
Okay,
have.
cool. Nice.
So Tayden is my son, is born in a very unique, he has a very unique placement uh in his chart, and it has to do with, I think, Sagittarius, and you have to be in like 28 degrees or something. And so he is lining up exactly uh with the galactic core. So it's a very unique chart. So people born within that placement, I can't remember who else had that, but there are people, the people that have that type of placement are people like Einstein, super, like, people who've changed our perception of humanity, you know, based upon the science that they're studying, or philosophy that they're bringing forth. So that's a really interesting placement for him, which tells me he is going to, when, you know, once his incarnation is done, he'll probably travel through the core, the galactic core, and then transfer out to another galaxy. So
Wow.
yeah, I know what he comes to planets. So what he's told me, because I've asked the kids why they're here when they were young, like, what are you doing here, why are you here, you know, why were you born, you know. And when you ask kids that, they're so intuitive and their
Yeah.
perception is strong, you know, before they become tainted by society. And so he said, he is here, why he's here to help preserve the knowledge so it doesn't get lost, and to help build what's coming next, which is pretty big.
Wow. So that sounds like the new Earth frequencies, right? And
Right.
connecting those dots.
Right.
Amazing. And your daughter?
She's here. She's like the wise old lady, the
Yeah.
wise old elder stuck in a young body. She's like a grandma stuck in a young body. So
Oh,
um,
wow.
she's, I feel like she's wiser than all of us, like my whole family. So
Very cool.
yeah.
Well, you guys are definitely a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah. So
That's the impression I'm getting.
yeah.
Like a
So it's
true
just,
galactic
it is true.
family.
Yeah.
That's
So it's
awesome.
it's really interesting. Yeah. And just, you know, yeah, just, you know, if anybody who's watching your show, like, talk to your kids, you know,
Yeah,
especially if they're
absolutely.
young, ask them those questions. And I feel like they already intuitively know, especially the ones that are coming in right now.
Yeah, yeah. And
So
that's my impression as well. Yeah, they're just coming in with like all of their DNA online and
yeah.
completely lit and completely aware of everything. And it if they do come in through the and you said rightly so, you come into this dimension with the veil that's like a default, right?
Yeah.
But all it takes is like a trigger, for them to
Mhm.
just snap into that mission mode, if you will, right?
Yeah.
And then everything comes online for them. So it's very easy. It's not like, in the past you had to go and sit in the mountains and meditate for, 25, 30 years before you gained enlightenment. No, that's not the case anymore, right?
Yeah.
I think everybody is on a fast track right now, and these beings are being sent to help us along the way to hasten that path, if you will. So I think what you're doing and what your kids are doing is totally fantastic. And it's like we're on the right path. So that's truly exciting, Ani.
Yeah.
How great to be a parent to such kids, hey?
Yeah, no, I'm thankful. I'm very thankful. So yeah, I'm proud of my kids, and it'll be interesting to see what path they go down. And the interesting about, you know, kids like, you know, my kids, and there are kids out there like them. There's a lot of
Mhm.
them. They're not afraid of death. They're
Yeah,
not afraid of death because, like you said, the veil is so thin, and they're able to kind of like naturally just kind of go back and forth, shift back and forth into this reality and then this other higher dimensional reality.
yeah,
So they're bringing in all of those codes, they're bringing in all of that energy into onto the planet, you know.
yeah.
So it's very interesting.
Yeah, fascinating, isn't it? Like we've got so many things opening up into our reality. It's like you don't have enough time in the day to explore all of these things,
Yeah.
right? And so you're just cramming all of it together, but it's truly fascinating. Um,
Mhm.
so let's just switch gears
Yeah,
slightly. I know
sure.
you've interviewed some really fascinating people on your
Mhm.
YouTube channel.
Mhm.
Are there any that sort of stood out to you? Like what have you gleaned, if you will, from those experiences and those conversations?
Yeah, so there's been a multitude of people that I've interviewed, and a couple of them that are very interesting is, you know, one of my friends, she makes medicine. So like cannabis basically. And so she's like a ceremonial medicine maker. I don't know how to describe it, but her deep connection with the earth and this plant medicine is really very helpful and healing to people. So I just always love going back to her story so that it can help ground me, because I get really like up here, you know? And so for me, I just really need to like ground myself into the earth. So her story is fascinating. Her name's Scarlett. And then the other one that was really fascinating was Lowell Johnson. And he had this experience on Mount Shasta, where I live near Mount Shasta, and where he was taken through a portal into the city of Lumeria. You know, that is basically
Telos, right?
your
Yeah,
Telos. Yeah,
yeah,
Telos.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's the Lumerians that live in Telos. And so that was very fascinating, his story, and the people that he's connected with, and his interactions with these light beings that he's had around Mount Shasta, and that his experience with the Lumerians that live under Mount Shasta in a different dimension, and how he basically said that he was physically able, like he was physically transported there, because we can astral travel, but he said he was actually physically transported down to the city. So I have like deep fascination over that. Because Mount Shasta is like this kind of hot spot for all paranormal activity. I mean,
Yeah, I
yeah.
actually heard there are like I don't know, caves or little caverns going into the earth, and if you're not aware, if you're not aware in a way, it's like people disappear down these caverns, and it is scary when you think about it. But if you are aware of what's going on, then they, like you said, they interact with you and they take you into their home, if you will, and teach you how they've been living. So. Yeah, I've heard some stories as well. I was actually in Mount Shasta a few years ago. So I was like, I was very nervous to go there, first of all, because I didn't understand all of these things at that point in time. But we went on a journey with a really nice group of people, and so it was a very healing journey for me. And yeah, we had a fantastic time.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Like, I advise people never to hike alone when you're on Mount Shasta. And also because there are, spirits of the land that the native people, the Shasta Indians, the Shasta people that are from that area have warned, modern people coming forth and told them, be very careful going on that mountain, because there are these spirits on the mountain and you don't want to anger them. And so, yeah, going on that mountain with very, high reverence and just thankfulness for being able to be there and experience it is very important. And yeah, definitely not hiking alone ever. Lowell did hike alone, and so that's his choice, and he did have that experience. But there have been multiple missing, where people actually go missing on the mountain. So I personally would not feel comfortable
Yeah.
going alone.
I've been told that they are in a very close proximity, if you will, to our existence. So I'm guessing they vibrate in the, I don't know, third, fourth, fifth dimension. What do you feel?
Yeah, I would say they're probably fourth dimension, fourth, fifth dimension for sure. Uh, and yeah, it's very interesting that they are living under the mountain in these crystal cities, and that all the UFO activity that goes on there must be because of them, or maybe, these non-human intelligences communicating with them. And there's also, the Sasquatch.
Yes.
So, and, there's legends of the giants as well in that area. So I think there's a lot of activity happening because of all the caves, like you said, that are there. So that's a way for these beings to be able to, travel in the inner earth.
So did your guest actually see them, like a
Yeah.
physical presence? Oh, wow. And did he give you a description of what they look like?
So I did not ask him the description of what they look like. I have to interview him again, but he he basically said he was sitting in a very specific spot, and I actually know where it is on the mountain. And he was sitting against a rock, and he went into this deep meditative state, and then a portal opened up behind him, and then this being brought him it down into this portal and down deep into the mountain where the city is. And so he saw these beautiful hydroponic gardens, crystal pyramids, and just beings just like living down there. And there's like this, like, it's almost like a sun underneath in the earth, you know, that's providing light for them, and that they're able to have their life down there, but they're also able to, you know, transition to our reality as well. So I think he described them as being tall and like blonde, kind of light skin. But I think this is, he said that this is just one of like 200 groups or cities around the world. And
Yeah.
so
No, I totally believe that. Yeah.
they're all over the place. And now with the new evidence of the, you know, this ocean that is around, you know, in Earth, that is around our core, it makes sense that there could be cities beneath us, you know, like it's just, so it's very interesting. And we just have no idea that it's even going on. I do think it's kind of in another dimension, but I believe as we are, you know, raising our frequency, we're able to interact with these beings more often.
Yeah.
And I do believe that a lot of sightings that are, you know, made around that area are probably the Lumerians.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of paranormal activity too. And there are locals that say that portals open up and that they are humans or dogs or animals are like dragged into this portal. So it's just a hot spot for everything.
Yeah.
You know.
Maybe it's like the one like true connection, if you will, between this world and their world, right?
Yeah.
Maybe the veils are the thinnest at that location. Perhaps because of the Stargate as well, right? Because Shasta is like a is it 2D? I think it's a 2D Stargate, right?
I'm not 100% sure. I know that Indy, she thinks that it is like a natural Stargate. I always thought of it more as like a portal.
Yeah.
But because there's so much, you know, activity, like, I mean, all the times, massive sightings, you know, and just things that are happening there, it is like, I'm sure, yeah, you just can travel to different
Yeah.
dimensions and
Yeah. So
for
very
sure.
interesting. So would you consider then that this location, if you will, is somehow connected to the underground bases that we get, you know, that get thrown around by like perhaps the military underground bases? And do you think that there is a connection to this and in some way?
If it's a hotspot, like if it is, you know, since I do think it's a hotspot and there's definitely massive energy, I think that they are definitely keen on what's going on for sure. I'm sure there's a connection. Like, I mean, the cave systems like underneath there go so deep, so far. And you know, there is actually a military base in California, which is kind of further down, I think Redding. I wouldn't be surprised if there's, you know, I feel like all of them are connected, you know, and they know that there are UFO sightings and all kinds of things that are going on there. So it's an easy way for them to tap in and start trying to get information. And, you know, this whole thing now with the psionics thing, you know, they've known this for a long time, and humans naturally do this. We have this power to be able to do that. We just haven't trained ourselves to do that. And most of us who are, you know, psychic or connected to these unseen worlds, we're doing this already. They're taking it, I'm sure they're taking advantage of that within that area and all over, like all the military bases, you know, up and down California. There's like 30 of them.
Um, and sorry, I just so I think you mentioned something about how that affects timelines and creating loops. Do you want to
Yep.
talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I was listening to James Bartley. He was on Rob's, typical skeptic podcast. And James Bartley was an abductee, and he also has a lot of information about my lab. So To me, I believe my lab is where there are people who are abducted and they're basically experimented on, by the Greys, by the reptilians, by more of the malevolent forces that are out there. And so he, after I talked to him, it came to my attention, or not talked to him, but watched him. And I will be talking to him soon. I'm going to interview him soon. It came to my attention. I was like, yeah, that's what's happening is these, these underground bases go far. And so they are messing around with electromagnetic energy, probably gravitational energies. And if they have this technology and they stole this technology from non-human intelligence, then they're able to shift, into different dimensions using most likely frequencies. And so when that happens, you are shifting our whole reality, and it creates these time loops. And not only time loops, but you can shift time in general. And so I experienced this personally where I was before I moved up to Oregon. And I was very close to the Bay Area. And so it felt like I was almost like kind of Groundhog's Day. Every day felt the same. And I could tell that I was like in this time loop, and people get stuck in these cycles. And so it happens a lot around these military bases and cities, because it's an easy way to control people. And they have I know they have the technology and the ability to be able to do that. But when they do that and they're messing with time and they're opening up these other dimensions, unfortunately, weird things come through. Weird type of beings come through, which can kind of I don't want to scare people, but yeah, can attack sensitive people,
Yeah. So would you say that's connected to what CERN is doing?
Oh yeah, they're messing with something for sure.
Okay.
I wonder it would be interesting to go around and interview people that live in that area around CERN and see what they're experiencing and what they're seeing, because we never hear about that. And so I think if we went to the people that are living in the area, we would start to get some serious answers about what's really happening and going on. And I guarantee there would be parallels with their experiences as well.
I'm sure they've all been given non-disclosure statements to sign.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, that alone is like warning sign.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Wow,
So
that's truly amazing that you've made that connection. My early days of awakening, shall we say, I followed this guy called Corey Good. I don't know if you know him. But he talked about this looping system that you've talked about. It's like they siphon their energy. It's like sort of taking their spark, if you will. But it's, to me, that in itself is like a degraded energy, because the Draco for one do definitely have that technology, and I personally am a result of that technology, right? So what this guy did, or what happened to him, was his energy, if you will, was extracted from his, let's say, his soul energy, like a spark of that was taken out, and from, say, X amount of time, like today at 0 hours or whatever, he was extracted, and he had this 20 years of experience, and then he came back to that exact spot or time of extraction. So there was that loop of 20 years where they sort of made him do whatever they wanted him to do in that 20-year period and come back to the same spot. And there are many people that talk about it. They call it the 20 and back programs, right? And so there's so many experiences. Like I went down this rabbit hole and like listened to all of these people and their experiences. And, they went off to Mars and they went off to all of these different planes of existence and had all of these experiences and came back to the same spot. And it's like, to experience that, like from a human level, it's like a snap of your fingers,
Right.
it's like you're just coming back to that exact same moment when nothing has changed in this reality, but you've had like 20 years of experience, which is really weird when you think about it, right? It's like your physical experience has not changed, but mentally you've lived 20 years, and had all these experiences. So Yeah,
I
it's really crazy when you think about it like that.
Yeah, I really connect with that. And I think I can see that happening, even with myself, because of the repetitive dreams that I have, and also how much I do dream every single night. Like having 3, 4 dreams in a night, every single night, not like it never ends. Like, where am I going and what am I doing? So it is almost like, yeah, this deep, it could be a time loop, or my other theory is the quantum entanglement. So I'm just connecting with my other selves, and tapping into them as well. But no, that makes total sense. And I believe that these time loops occur. I mean, like you said, they can create these like frequency fences, and then it can affect multiple people. And you, like you said, they're just loose, taking the loosh and the energy, and then you're going to all these other places, and then you like drop back in and you get stuck. And so I had this, very deep sense to like leave the area that I was living in. And so once we left the area, I'm it's like I broke that time loop, like I severed it. And so I don't feel it where I am now, which is good.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, let's shift gears again.
Okay.
Are we okay for time?
Yeah, I'm totally fine. Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to talk a little bit about your healing modalities and what it is that you offer, like somebody that perhaps came to you for healing?
Sure. So I just want to be very clear. I don't heal the person, they heal themselves. What I do is I guide them along their spiritual path so that they can empower themselves to heal themselves. And so, what happens with healing is a lot of times people are always seeking healing outside of themselves and having somebody else doing the work for them to heal them. That's not how healing happens. Healing happens by doing all the work yourself. And but it's nice to have a guide to help you along the way. So and to help you not get off your path as you are healing yourself. And so what I do is I offer spiritual counseling and guidance, as well as also I'm an advocate for cancer advocate. And so I can help you discuss your very carefully discuss your protocols and what your doctors are having you do, and I can help guide you towards maybe the metabolic approach if the person is ready for it. The person has to be ready for it. A lot of people are not ready to step completely away from Western medicine and go this other route, and that's fine. It's their choice, and so I'm here to provide support in any way that they need on that end. And you know just give them, share information with them so that they can start seeking out potentially other forms of healing, physical healing. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think it's very important for people to understand that we are in such a critical time, if you will, right? That this growth, if you will, has to come from them. And you're right in saying that, it has to come from your heart. It has to be something that you want to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the growth is, and that's where it happens, right?
Yeah. And so I'm very clear with any of my clients that because true, like I said, it's providing the right environment for the person to heal themselves. And so that's why, like, if you go to ceremony, or if you go to like certain breath works, the person who's facilitating this is creating the environment, creating the ceremony for you to then do the work and then experience the healing that you've done for you. And so once people start wrapping their head around that, and really taking those steps to heal, because it's not an easy path. Like, you have to be disciplined, you have to be determined, you have to have will, you have to accept death, you have to work on your and make friends with your shadow self. And I try not to say banish shadow self, because we are in this dualistic third density realm, so we're always going to have our shadow. So I always try and say make friends with the shadow, give the shadow light, instead of like cursing the shadow, so to speak, and or judging the shadow. because if we do that, then we just spiral down this, the shadow path more, and it just, pops up more. Like the shadow will continue to pop up until we give it light, so to speak.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's really important. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's sort of what I teach as well, because and it's interesting when you brought up your story about connecting, to your soul family, if you will. So I work at a very base level of connecting anybody that's sort of lost or fragmented from a soul level to their higher self energies. And so
Mhm.
I have this, it's structured in a way that guides you to find your higher self, if you will, or strengthen your higher self energies, because of the invasion, we have all been either fractured or injured from that true connection to the creator, right? So my services is that, I bring people into a state of meditative state. I do a sort of a chakra clearing just to bring them into that pure state of being, and then
Mhm.
connect them and help them to make that correct alignment, if you will, to their higher self energies. And so in a way, it's like guiding them to find that way back, if you will, right, to ascend and to find their soul family again. And so, my feedback that I've had is that, people have actually been able to communicate with their oversouls and perhaps connect with their soul family after they've had a session with me. So, for me, that's really confirming and, sort of giving me that direction that I'm moving on the right path and helping people out and helping
Yeah.
them find their way, right? So, yeah, I think what you offer as well is sort of fascinating, because you're coming at it from a higher dimensional aspect as well, but you're also healing on the physical level too. And so
Yeah.
that's truly humbling, right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And it's awesome that you're connecting them, helping them connect in like that, like you said, that severed line back to their higher self, because I think that's what people are seeking. And once they're able to connect to their higher self, then like you said, then it empowers them, and then they can receive those answers
Yeah.
that, where they don't need to look outside themselves to get the answers. The answers are going to come from within and from their soul family. And so many people, I feel like, are really desiring that and seeking that right now. So
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
really
And then
great.
it's like having that direct line to the creator as well, right? Because it's like picking up a phone, right? A phone, and then just calling anytime you want to have that connection, right? And so, yeah, it's truly fascinating how we are able to do that now.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
what's next for Ani?
What's next? So I just recently created a course called Dreams 101, the Quantum Perspective. It's on sale right now. So if anybody wants to get it, they can go to my website and go to courses, and then just put in the coupon code of quantum, all caps 21. So quantum 21. It's $21, and it's 3 video lessons. And then what it does is it's a 21 day deep seeking reflection into your dreams and archetypes and symbols, as well as shadow work as well. So there are 21 questions for 21 days, asking, kind of diving deep more into releasing the shadow, your shadow self, and or becoming friends with it and bringing light to it, and then also collecting dreams, so analyzing dreams. And so by doing those two things together, it helps people like step on that path to um begin, like you said, understanding who you are, where you come from, and start empowering the person to be able to get the answers themselves instead of going outside of themselves to seek answers. Because personally, for me, I get stuck in that trap sometimes where I am seeking outside of myself, and then I give away my power when I do that. So part of my journey right now is really trying to empower myself and just going within. And so this helps people get started. And I'm also going to be diving deep more into quantum entanglement. I've come across some very interesting peer-reviewed papers, scientific papers, where they've been able to transfer information via quantum entanglement in the brain, and they're starting to be able to scientifically collect the data. So I'm going to start like to kind of like diving deep into that more, and how we receive these quantum messages. And also I'm going to be doing a little like reporting series on Mount Shasta. So I'm going to go there. I'm going to go to some of these sacred sites and I'm going to report and kind of talk about the lore and also the paranormal activities that happen there. And then I also am going to try and get like a specialized camera. So during deep meditative states with people, not by myself, we'll set up some cameras and then we'll sit there and try and meditate for an hour to see if we can see some interesting light beings or paranormal activity. So I'm going to start a series soon as things start melting on Mount Shasta. So I'm working on those things. I'm working on, continuing my work with my clients and just providing as much information as possible to everybody and help people continue to wake up, as we are going through this very interesting time right now. So
Awesome. That sounds fascinating.
yeah.
I really look forward to, following your journey as you move along. Just one quick question about your course. Is it like a one-on-one session or is it like a video recorded session for the
So it's a
21
video.
days?
Yeah, it's a video recorded session. So there's 3 videos, and I dive deep into the science behind quantum, just the quantum perspective of dreams and the hypnagogic state, how to get in specific brainwave states in order to receive these messages. In there, I provide a journal. So it's a dream journal, and also the 21 questions that they'll get with that. And once they do that work, if they need, deeper seeking and they need, help with analyzing the information they've received, then, they can contact me. I do discovery call, like a 30-minute discovery call, as well as more for my cancer clients. I do like an hour and a half deep dive, like kind of into, their whole medical history and stuff, as well as like the emotional spiritual part. But for people who are just looking for like spiritual counseling, they can buy a package. So
Okay, cool. Awesome. I'll have that information in the show notes as well. Was there
awesome.
anything that we didn't talk about that you want to bring forward?
Well, I just want to, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, but there's a lot of people who are feeling uncertain about the times right now. And, I just want to give a little message about that. We all chose to come here during this time. We are all a part of this shift and this transition. And I believe that we are those that are seeking us, and seeking more information about their higher selves and/or spiritual guidance. I believe, you're here to help raise humanity up and also kind of raise Earth as she's transitioning through this ascension. And even though it seems scary, and that, very uncertain, it's a lot of times during these very scary and uncertain times, like kind of this dark night of the soul moment for all of humanity, where we really understand and start receiving our gifts and coming together. So it's it's a huge cleanse that's happening, but I also believe it's, very important for us to go through this, and so that, as we move to the next level, basically, at least we're balanced then. And so we want to be balanced together. So that's
Well
my
said,
message.
well said, well
Thank
said.
you.
Thank you very much. Well, it's been fantastic, Ani, having you on the show, and I'm sure I'll go back and listen to it because there's so many jewels that were, that transpired during this conversation. And yeah, it's truly fascinating and brave of you to have, given us a glimpse into your life. So yeah, I thank you from the bottom of my heart
Thank
for,
you.
sharing your time with us and just being on my show. So to our viewers, please go and check out Ani and the services that she has to offer. Go and support her channel, and just spread the word. Like Ani said, we're all on a path of discovery and ascension, and so the more we come together as a community and raise the vibration of the collective, the quicker we can tip the balance as to where we are going and welcome those new earth energies into our reality. So thank you, Ani. Thank you,
Thank
everybody, for
you.
watching. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you.